Get uncomfortable with silence. Most salespeople that I know, myself included, we have very, very fast brains. We can pivot. We can move from one thing to the next. Oh, you don't like that? Well, let me tell you about this. What about this? How about that? Let me tell you about this thing. Your person that you're talking to may just simply need 30 seconds for you to shut these so they can process all the things that you've been throwing at them. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sales Spark Podcast. This is a solo episode, just me, a little bit shorter today. We're going to kick it off with this phrase that you may or may not have heard when you were a kid. Did you ever hear this? Curiosity killed the cat. The implication to that is don't be too curious because you're going to get yourself in trouble. And I have seen this same approach with salespeople. One of the things that I do in my storytelling class where I teach curiosity and along with reflective listening is we talk about some questions that you can ask to be curious. And what I've learned that many salespeople are afraid of, what keeps them from really digging into curiosity is what somebody said in one of my recent courses. They said, Jason, I'm afraid to ask some of these questions because I'm afraid that then I'm on the hook to solve the thing that they say is their problem. So here's one of the examples of one of the questions. What keeps you up at night? If you had a magic wand and could wave it, what are the 3 things that you would solve immediately? If you can think 6 months, 12 months into the future or a year from now, and this problem is taken care of, what does that future state look like? And then just listen. What I heard from this person is they said, Jason, well, if I ask them what are the things that keep them up at night, then I'm on the hook to solve those things. I disagree. You can then, once you hear them through reflective listening, reflecting back to them and telling them what you heard them say, they're going to feel heard. So let me give you an example before we move on. So I'll take a real life example that we use from this course. A person one of their prospects had been hired to come in to run this department where 2 previous directors had failed and had been fired. So one of the people in my class is talking to this person who just got this promotion, and there was an implementation that wasn't working, and the company needed this implementation and this execution to work, and the other 2 directors couldn't get it done. So they hired this person, to come in and do it. And so in the course of the conversation, they're talking, and the person says, I need to find a solution that can help with X. Now, whatever X is what I teach as the practical problem. And the problem that salespeople have when it comes to curiosity is that their curiosity ends when they get to the practical problem. The practical problem is the thing that's broken. So in this particular situation, this implementation it wasn't happening. So things weren't working together. They're losing money, they're losing clients, they're losing time, and it wasn't working the way that it needed to be working. And the salesperson said, well, when they told me, this is the problem, I immediately went into solution mode. I get it. That's what most of us are trained to do. We've heard that pain point. Oh, there's a pain point. Oh, I'm so excited. I got a pain point. I'm going to hammer on that pain point because that's where the pain is. And I have a great solution. I want to tell them all about the solution and talk. Resist that, because what's happening is you have come as a salesperson with an agenda. And my challenge to you when you are prospecting meeting, when you are networking, when you have a warm lead and you get that initial conversation, suspend the agenda. Let me say that again. Suspend the agenda. What agenda? Your agenda to get a demo, to get a call book, to get a meeting, to get further down the road with potential decision makers. Suspend that agenda. And if you do, I'm telling you, if you do, you will uncover more pain and deeper pain to deal with than just the practical problem. So that person says, here's what I would do in this situation. That person says, I'm in this role. The two people before me have failed. We've got to figure out this implementation. I need a solution for X. Okay, so they've told you the solution for X. Don't be fooled by that. If you can reflectively listen to what the person has said, it would look like this. You would look at them and say, wow, you are the third director in less than 12 months that's been hired to pull that off. That's a big job. I bet that's added a lot of stress and pressure to your plate. Now, they didn't say that, but I'm inferring that. I'm listening closely for that pain, and I'm reflecting that back. And when you, a couple things, when you stop at the end of your statement, and if you noticed, I used what I call a downward inflection at the end. Your voice goes down. If your voice goes up, how my voice went up, that implies a question or conveys to the person that's listening to you, especially if you do it a lot, that you're not confident. If you use a downward inflection, it's like you are stating something definitively. So that sounds like it's added a lot of stress and pressure to your life. So I'm reflecting back in a definitive way, and now is the key. Now is one of the hardest things for salespeople to do. Shut these. Shut them. Don't say any words after you say that. Let it hang there. If they agree with you, they will pick it up where you left off and continue and tell you more about the stress and pressure. That's another level that I teach in my sales training. It's another level of pain. There's actually one more below that most people never get to. But man, if you can get to that third level of pain, that is where the gold is. That's where the relationship is. That's where the foundation gets super solidified. And if you're interested in what those are, I'd love to talk to you about doing some sales training for your sales teams. Curiosity, downward inflection, silence. Get uncomfortable with silence. Because here's the other thing that I've learned in training and coaching salespeople. Most salespeople that I know, myself included, we have very, very fast brains. We can pivot. We can move from one thing to the next. Oh, you don't like that? Well, let me tell you about this. What about this? How about that? Let me tell you about this thing. Your person that you're talking to may just simply need 30 seconds for you to shut these so they can process all the things that you've been throwing at them. Here's another thing that I do. If I know that I'm going to tell my prospect or my client a lot of information, I will preface it by saying, I'm going to tell you a lot of information. I've got about 3 or 4 minutes of stuff that I'm going to throw at you. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to give you about a minute to process it and have a think. And then after you've had that think, I want to know what questions you have about that. Most people ask, do you have any questions? What's the answer to that? You know what the answer is. You probably just said it. No, we don't have questions because we don't want to be the idiot who doesn't know. We don't want to be the person that asks the questions when everybody else seems to know what's going on and we're the only lost ones. So number one, if you let them know you're going to give them time. Number two, I set a timer on my phone for a minute. And when that time, and I do it so that they can hear it. So when that timer goes off, and if we're on a Zoom call, they can hear it. When that timer goes off, I will say, so now that you've had a chance to have a think, what questions do you have? You will get far more questions asking that way than do you have any questions? Or if we say something like, makes sense? If it doesn't make sense, they don't want to be the person to go, no, it doesn't make sense. It's confusing for me. Unless you have, somebody who's super comfortable and a little bold in the way that they communicate. Because most of us just nod, makes sense? Yeah, it makes sense. And inside we're like, God, I've got like 7 questions, but I don't want to ask. Or maybe they feel rushed or hurried. Curiosity, it's an underrated and underdeveloped superpower that salespeople have. Here's the next thing. It has to be authentic and genuine. Have you ever been talking to somebody? It doesn't have to be sales related, but it does happen in sales. Have you ever talked to somebody, you're talking to them, and the whole time you're talking, you can see in their face that they are just waiting for you to get finished so that they can say the thing that they've been thinking about since the first word you've said, which says to me, as I'm watching that person listen, that they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're just waiting for a chance to talk. And when salespeople come in with this agenda, that's the vibe we put out. That's why people don't like salespeople. That's why salespeople have a bad rap. They're slimy, they're smarmy, they've always got an agenda, they've always got an angle that they're working. Yes, but it's also possible to have that in a way that we have an agenda, but we're also willing to listen. We're willing to suspend that. And something that I learned from my couples therapist, which I thought was very helpful. And sometimes, especially if I have a good relationship with a client, I'll ask them this when they start, unloading and asking me or telling me all these things. I may say to them, so question that I have for you as you're telling me these things, this is what my therapist said. She calls it the 3 S's. Do you want silence? Do you just need somebody to listen? Do you want support? Do you need somebody to show empathy if we're sitting face to face? Do you need me to put a hand on your shoulder? Do you need me to give you a hug when this is over? Do you need words of affirmation to tell you that it's going to be okay? Or do you need a solution? So do you need silence? Do you need support? Or do you need a solution? And most of the time, salespeople are hardwired for solution. So we don't offer silence and we don't necessarily offer support. We think that offering support or offering the solution is offering support, and it's not. So this curiosity thing has to be intentional and authentic for who you are. So let me give you quickly an activity that you can do within your sales team meetings. You can do within your one-on-ones. You can do with your peers. Get to the place, do a role play. Somebody is the client who is telling you a problem that they have. You've already gone through the initial who are you and what do you do and all that sort of stuff. And you've gotten to the place where they're telling you what the problem is. So the problem is X, and they're going to tell you the practical problem. My challenge to you is not to solve at all and to ask 3 curious questions. So let's go back to that example that I gave you earlier. This person who's been brought in to be the director, they have not had, the previous 2 have not had success. This person has been given that. So yeah, so I've been tasked with solving this problem, and there are 2 directors that came before me. And all we really need to do is implement this solution in an effective way, and we're off to the races. So here are some questions that I may ask that would help, that would show curiosity and help me get more information and hopefully go down deeper into the pain. So, what kinds of solutions have people tried in the past? What were the things that people tried in the past that didn't work? What is the time frame that management has given you to get this fixed? Are they willing to put dollars and resources behind this? Or were you given a project and a problem that's like, fix it, but we're not going to help you? And all of those things are going to help me understand better what it is that they need. And though I may have a solution in the time that we are talking, I don't necessarily want to offer that solution. I want to keep reflecting back what I'm hearing. And then at the end, I can say something like, so what I'm hearing is this, and this. I can tell you that I have worked with people that have had similar problems to you, and I would love to talk about some potential solutions. Those solutions could help alleviate some of that stress and pressure that I know you're feeling. So now I've gone a level deeper past the practical, and that's going to draw them in. So suspending the agenda, asking more questions, not going straight to solution, and reflecting back on what we think we hear. Because when you reflect back, if I reflected back to that person and said, wow, it sounds like that's added a lot of extra stress and pressure to your life. If that's not true, they're going to tell me, no, not really. What really is happening is blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. Now I understand. Now I'm going this way. I'm not going that way. So reflective listening is a way to make sure that you're on track, to stay on track, to get back on track if you're not there. And at the same time, it shows the person that you're talking to that you're listening to them for meaning, not just listening to try to find the solution. I hope that makes sense. So, curiosity, underdeveloped, underutilized superpower. If you can begin to strike the match of curiosity, just ask one extra question if you don't typically ask any. Do some reflective listening back to them. What's one match that you can strike? Because that's what this podcast is all about. It's not the big grand gesture. That's what we want to get to eventually, the big contract, the big win, right? But what is one small thing? What's one match that you can strike that's going to make a difference in your sales world, in your sales behaviors, in your results as a result of implementing curiosity? That's what I got for today. Remember, strike the match. Fire always wins.